Welcome back. You are watching The Fix with me, Karima Brown, and I'm in conversation with CASAC's Lawson Naidu and former KZN Hawks head General Johan Boysen. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me here on The Fix. Now, this 96-page report reads like a thriller. I can't believe the evidence that is in here, and this is an internal report. Yesterday, the NPA released a statement, and it says that the investigative directorate that is headed up by Hermione Cronje of the NPA has several criminal dockets relating to these matters. And she says the recent, or rather the statement says the recent presidential proclamation amending the regulations of the Commission to facilitate the sharing of information will assist in expediting these matters. Now, there has been an attempt to conflate the issues here, and that is probably why these people are still in the NPA. I'm going to be putting this question to Sipho Ngwema later. But the statement of yesterday seems to suggest that in the case, especially of Ms. Noko, that the president is the only person that can take action against her. General Boysen, do you understand the matter in that way, or do you believe, given that she is in fact an officer of the court, that the NPA can take action against her, given the guidelines that are set down for prosecutors?
Karima, Lawson said earlier on that that report, I would suggest that it was incumbent upon the NDPP, the current NDPP, to favour the president with the Cock report, so that at least some sort of investigation internally could commence against Mahema and Noko.
Okay, Lawson, let me bring you in here. What are the implications for the rule of law, for our constitution, when you have an internal report of the NPA, led by the deputy head of the NPA, which finds that a provisional head, in the case of Advocate Noko and also Mr. Mahema, have, really behaved abominably. I mean, one can only conclude that they have broken the law on several occasions, that they are still in the employ of the state. They get to prosecute other people who have broken the law. What are the implications for the rule of law and for the Constitution here?
Well, look, as I said earlier, these are really serious findings against advocates Noko and Mahema in the de Kock report, and quite clearly action needs to be taken. And I think we need to separate out different processes here, Karima. So insofar as the role of the president is concerned, it relates to Advocate Noko because she's a DPP appointed by the president. So any disciplinary action would need to be initiated by the president in terms of setting up a formal inquiry. But that's an internal NPA process to deal with the the improper conduct of advocates Noko and Mahema. We need to separate that from the criminal law implications of their conduct. And so we now know that the ID is investigating matters relating to these issues that are presented in the de Kock report. We also know that the Zondo Commission is conducting, as part of its investigation, looking at the NPA as a whole, looking at the Boysen matter in particular. And so, there are these various processes at play, and I think the point that is being made is that both the ID and the Zondo Commission are now cooperating in relation to those criminal charges. So, perhaps belatedly, but it does seem that now some action is being taken.
All right, General Boysen, I see you are quoted in the Sunday Times story in relation to Sipho Ngwema confirming that they are investigating Ms. Chiba. I'm going to put to him when exactly charges are going to be proffered against her. But how does one get your head around the fact that she is going to be charged, but the two people that actually assisted her in this matter are still in the employ of the NPA? You were in law enforcement. You were the head of the Hawks. In terms of your understanding of the law, does this make sense to you?
Remember, these are two clear, distinct processes, as Lawson pointed out. The internal disciplinary matter and then the criminal matter which the ID is now investigating. My concern is I opened cases against Advocate Norco and Advocate Mahema more than 2 years ago. And up until today, I have not heard anything from the from SAPS, who are investigating those cases. I recently heard from a member of the ID that they managed to locate the dockets which I opened more than 2 years ago, and absolutely nothing had been done in those dockets. And that to me raises a serious concern. The criminal matter could have been finalized by now. My information is that not a single statement, except the statements and the documents that I provided when I opened the case, are in those dockets.
Lawson, let me bring you in here. This delaying process in terms of clearing out the NPA obviously has implications for how people do jobs and how they go after, those that they're supposed to go after. So in the report, we also see that the current head of the NDP, Mr. Chauke here in Gauteng, is part of an investigation. Now, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the NPA Act is that you cannot bring in another provisional head to be part of prosecuting someone in a different jurisdiction. How does the fact that Mr. Chauke is part of this team, as found in the de Kock report, speak to the differentiating of roles in the NPA? And are there possibilities that even Mr. Chauke's behavior can be called into question? Because now we're not just talking about one provisional head, as in the case of Ms. Norco, but also possibly another one here in Gauteng.
Indeed, Karima. That's why I referred earlier to the role of the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit, which was really the unit within the NPA that was steering all of these prosecutions. Now, my understanding of the NPA Act is that it is not normal for one provincial director or DPP to take on a matter in a different jurisdiction, but that it can be done with the authorization of the NDPP, which is what probably happened in this case, whether it was Advocate Jibo or Advocate Abrams, I'm not sure. But I also want to come back, Karima, to the point that General Boyson just made about his laying of criminal charges. And I think we need to frame this whole conversation around the NPA, looking at the whole of the criminal justice system in its context. So whilst we know that the NPA was certainly captured during the state capture era, so were the SAPs and the Hawks and a range of other state institutions. So as General Boyson says, if the SAPs and the Hawks are not investigating matters, then we can't just shine a spotlight on the NPA for not taking action if no docket is given to them to prosecute. Absolutely.
We have 1 minute left. I'm going to give that opportunity to General Boyson. Technology doesn't allow me to put you and Mr. Ngwema from the NPA in the same frame. I want you to put a question to him regarding the continued employment of 2 people who were found by an NPA report to have broken the law. What is it that you'd like to hear, or to put rather, to Mr. Ngwema from the NPA?
Well, Karima, I would like to ask him whether he feels comfortable with the notion that we have 2 senior advocates in the National Prosecuting Authority who can determine the fate of people and who had been part and parcel of a cabal that persecuted 30 innocent people in KwaZulu-Natal. Is he comfortable with the idea of them still taking decisions that can determine the fate of innocent people?
All right, that's where we will leave it. That is former Hawks head in KwaZulu-Natal, General Johan Boyson, and of course the Executive Director of CASAC, Mr. Lawson Naidoo. Still ahead, the NPA's response to why the de Kock report is not being actioned. Stay with us.